very passionate because I'm out on a field visit and I'm looking at roads and culverts while I listen in. Thanks for questions and points, Hannah. So I'll join again once it gets going.
Okay.
Casey O'Neill is there.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey,
Corinne Powell is here.
Hey,
Corinne.
Kate, Sacramento?
Yesterday, I'm back home now.
How did it go?
Pretty good. Some leadership stepping in. Kaslin Tomaszewski from, he was the leader of Cannabis Alliance last year. He is actually going to move to Sacramento and essentially be working full-time as a volunteer helping move CGA to another level of organization. We're kind of at a point where, you know, the organization has grown tremendously over the last couple of years, and we need to really pull things together and streamline things and make things more organized. So I'm cautiously optimistic. Yeah.
Great. That's great.
It was really good.
You guys go over in detail AB 133?
We did not.
This is Jude. Did you know what after AB 133, or does anybody know after AB 133 when they're going to come out with the next document of reconciliation before the end of the year?
Yeah, Jude.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The next thing that will happen, there's nothing that's going to come out of the legislature until next year because the legislative session is over, but the emergency regs are going to be the next thing happens, and that's not from the legislature, that's from the Bureau and other agencies, and because of the nature of it being emergency regs, it's not going to go through the normal rulemaking process. It has a very, very tight window on content, and all indications are that unless it's something that's really resounding and significant and can easily be changed, that there won't really be much of an opportunity to change it.
Right. That's what I do. Do you know a timeline on that, Hannah?
You know, I think that the indication, and Casey, if you know more, let me know, but I think the indication was they were shooting for October, but it could be not until November.
Oh, Lord.
So, Amber Morris was there yesterday, and she said that they're waiting on the CEQA, and the CEQA is not going to be done until the beginning of November, so it will be November before draft regs are out.
Hey, Casey, can I interject something about that?
Yeah.
Tomorrow in Sacramento is public comment on their CEQA, and
Right.
included in their CEQA document. That's why I was late for the other meeting this morning. I stayed up most of the night reading that document, 491 pages of it. But they do outline what the proposed emergency regulations are going to be in there.
Only kind of to an extent, I think. You're talking about on each topic, Paul, or just as it relates to the environmental stuff?
I have an outline on each topic.
And now that's the Bureau. That's the Bureau regulations, or that's the CDFA regulations.
I imagine it's the Bureau because it's in their CEQA, their peer.
I thought, because the beer thing dropped this week and really set the cultivation community into a tizzy, because one of the main things from the summary that Omar sent around was the thing about full security cameras and all visitors with badges checking in and all this crazy shit, which only applies to bureau licensees and not to CDFA licensees, which cultivation falls under. And so that's something in conversations with the community we need to be, we need to be letting people know, like, I've gotten probably like almost 20 calls about the question of the video cameras and stuff. And so this is something that we got to help people make the separation between the bureau and the CDFA licensing.
Well, what I'm most interested in is the micro business, because it looks like they're going to be allowing it for medical and for adult use, and going to be tiered for different cultivation styles. So you can have a cottage industry micro business.
But this is kind of, just so you know, it's
This is Carol. We're on the call. We'd like to go ahead and get started. This call is the distance requirements, and this is from 12:30 to 1:30. And I would like to just make a couple comments before we take the roll. One is that we talked about the working groups at the board meeting yesterday. I think it went really well. The board was really pleased that so many people are participating. So I want to extend thank you again to all of you for participating in the working group call. The second thing was that Dan Hamburg actually was very clear on what he would like to see, which that we all work on the issues, we develop options, and that when we come into the board with a report, we look at what the issues are and the recommendations from the working group. So I think that's a good format, and that's what I'm hoping we could actually accomplish over the next few weeks. The second thing is that the request to do in-person meetings, we're going to go ahead, we were going to wait till October, but now the urgency really that a lot of you have expressed on the issues, we will see in-person meetings next week, which is September 26th. And this meeting will be 12:30 to 1:30 here at the Admin Center in Conference Room A. And if you cannot attend, you can call in. So you'll have the ability still to be, where you're working or whatever and calling in, but we will do in-person meetings. Lastly, there was a request on one of the calls last week that we let people know who's on the call. And the purpose of that was actually work together outside of these calls. And so we did do that. And of course, of sending out the list of who's on each call, we actually sent out contact information thinking that that would be okay. We did get a complaint, at least one, sending out someone's contact information, so we took that information back. And I want to say, if anybody else doesn't want their information shared and you haven't made that point just yet, please do, and we will take your name and your information off the list. But, it was a good point that was brought up at one of the calls earlier today, that these are calls that have been, these are meetings, essentially, that have been asked for by the Board of Supervisors. The expectation is that people are coming to the table and there is no concern about anybody knowing who you are or that you're at the table. And so I just want to say that that was the perspective we came from when we decided that based on the request that we would send information out. So at this point, that's the situation there, and we hope that everybody is participating and working together and find that other people know that you're participating in the working group. So with that, remember, next week will actually be an in-person meeting, but you can call in. Have shared your information so people know who's on the calls and that you can work together outside of these meetings. Our goal is to develop a format that we could bring to the board soon that would set out the issues and also the solutions or the options that are listed by the working group. And when we do that, we expect that the working group will participate in that presentation to the board. So with that said, I'm going to turn over to Cass for roll call.
Kate Neal. Casey.
Maybe you did.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that. Mute. My bad.
Thank you. Sean, yeah, Trey?
I'm here.
Carl? Ellen? Hassan? Coleman? Herrera?
Good afternoon.
Carriers? Kathy? Amsbury? Tibbins? County staff, Carmel Angelo?
Here.
Janelle Rao? Here. Ben Curry? Here. Brian Boyd? Here. Sarah? Here. Is there on the call who I may have missed?
The cabinet, I was just on another call, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So, and what we've done in the last two working groups today, and some of you have participated in those, and we've tried to identify the top issues that we want to work on. So next week, we could come in prepared to work on those issues. And again, there may be solutions that you have as a stakeholder versus a solution that a staff person has. But I assure you, we will do everything we can to work to a position that both we county staff and you as stakeholders could agree on. That is the goal. So with that said, with staff's requirement, I'd like to open it up and just ask, again, identify yourself, but we'd like to start with key issues. Now, let me say that Hannah Nelson sent her questions in. She actually sent 3 pages. It's actually very organized. I don't know if we want to start with Hannah's question issues. I'm open to doing that. As I said, I think it's very well organized. And Hannah, I don't know if you can do this in 5 minutes or less, but would you just start?
Sure, I can try, but I really wedded to this. I think I wanted to alert everybody to AB 133, and I did attach it. I don't know whether people got the attachment as sent out, but I can easily edit it.
Hannah, we did not send out your attachment. Go ahead.
Okay. If people email me, I'm happy to send them it if they can't find it online, but I'm sure you can find it online. Just make sure that you're getting the full one that was published on the 18th, I think it is. Yeah, the 18th, and not a previous draft. Skipping that, although I think that there are some important issues that people can be aware of after reading AB 133, my main 2 top issues that I would like us to try and zone in on are mine number 2, which is a rapid response preparedness for emergency regs and the short comment period. I do not have any illusions that we would necessarily be able to move the needle on lots of issues that we might have comments on for the emergency regs, but if there are dire issues that we feel we must comment on and try to move the needle, there's going to be a very, very short time frame in which to do that. And so I just want us to have it on the radar and a time frame so that if we feel compelled, again, since it's like the normal rulemaking process, I'm not sure that the state is really going to change any emergency reg based on comment, but if there's something urgent, we want to be prepared to comment on it just in case. And then the other issues are really having to do with being prepared for provisional licenses, which is, I really think, the first most important thing. And then, of course, handle the other issues with respect to normal state licensing.
Is that Hannah? Because you keep going in your
I think that people can read my issues, and I don't necessarily feel like I have to comment on everything. There were suggestions about some process, suggestions about the specifics of each topic, but those are just my suggestions, so I'm really happy if people, are reading it and they agree with it, they can comment. Otherwise, if they have an alternate suggestion, I'm open.
I have a question about number 2, the provisional licenses, Ellen, that maybe we could talk about. I mean, assuming that a county applicant does not yet have a county permit, and I think we can assume that it's going to take a while for people to get those, and it seems like the state would entertain some alternative authorization if the permit is in process. Does anybody have ideas about what that alternative authorization might be that's acceptable to both the county and to the state?
Hannah, I do have a suggestion on that. My suggestion is that possibly, at least for the cultivation licenses, this wouldn't really necessarily address the other license types, but for the cultivation license type, I'm thinking that perhaps the commercial cannabis permit application involves receipt. That means that somebody has already proven our cultivation and submitted the basic packet of information from AG, that ought to do it, but I had suggested that the county reach out to the state to see if there's an indication of whether that would work. But that was just one kind of easy, already existing thing.
This is Julia Carrera. May I make a suggestion that we come up, each of us, with our 5 primary focus for this call in regards to what we need to address? And have got, in my opinion, my number 1, which is we provide a provisional license not only in cultivation and all licensure in Mendocino County to the state for licensure in 2018 at the state. My other 2, the rest of them are micro business licenses, off-farm distribution, and security requirements. Thank you.
Here's the third one.
Julia, can you repeat those, please?
Sure. The first one, Hannah's speaking about a provisional license for all licenses being issued in Mendocino County. Micro business license, off-farm distribution. Currently, and I think the last time we spoke, Casey brought up the fact that right now the owner cannot distribute off his farm, and that's going to be a significant economical impact to Mendocino County. The last one was security requirements.
Security, yeah.
Okay, other than Julia and Hannah, other input into top issues that we want to talk about in this particular working group?
This is Paul Hansberry. I have been lobbying and talking with people in Sacramento to understand why stage outdoor is the only category that's limited to plants and canopy. And wanted to see if they could get it to 2,500 square feet of canopy, because it seemed to make more sense. However, in my research last night, I understand that they have a misleading description of what canopy is. Their growing space canopy. To me, canopy is the drip line in IR square. That's your canopy for your plant. They're calling it the space, and they're saying that it can be like 10 feet apart. It could be a non-contiguous, but it's the space where you're growing. So that severely limits. That's why they put outdoor at 25 plants. Other than that, there's the micro business. I found out last night that they're going to be offering micro businesses not just for adult use, for medical as well, and it appears that it's going to be tiered. That the different, like a cottage or cultivation would be eligible for a microbusiness. I would imagine that's going to be a tiered microbusiness license as well. I don't know if it's going to be an umbrella as one license of a microbusiness, or if the person getting the microbusiness has to get licenses in order to comply and report to different departments. I have Al out to try to get that, and I'm going to be in Sacramento tomorrow trying to get more information.
Information, Paul. Thank you. Next.
This is Casey O'Neill. I would definitely second the things that have said already. The canopy issue is a big one. Talked about that briefly in the last meeting. The security issues, I did ask Amber Morris from CDFA yesterday about the proposed cultivation security measures, and she said they had not changed from the prior draft of the regs. So at the time, for now, there is no, for instance, there is no security camera requirement for cultivation, and so we just want to stay on top of that and make sure that remains the same and doesn't shift. She did confirm yesterday that she did not expect that to be an issue. So, I'm cautiously optimistic regarding state security requirements for cultivation. They are much stricter from the Bureau. We saw the draft regs of the Bureau. And so for other segments of the industry, we're going to need to talk to those operators and find out if there are things we need to shift in those departments.
Casey, this is Jude. Yeah, the other sectors, we're really getting hit hard by these security requirements in the state regs. And I know this doesn't necessarily relevant to the county because the county's not replicating that level of honest requirements, but that's going to be something we'll have to take up for sure.
And then the other, the distribution question, we're seeing some discussion out of Sacramento about the possibility for something along the lines of a distribution license, a light distribution license, essentially, that would be sort of an add-on to the cultivation license from CDFA that would allow farmers to transport their product. It wouldn't allow for the taxation or the testing without a full distribution license, and so it essentially would it would get us back to being able to transport raw, untested product off the farm. So we're hoping that will continue to move, and I think it's something that, I very much second Julia's point. This is something the county needs to be paying attention to very much. Those are the ones off the top of my head, and again, just I second everything else that everybody said.
Carmel, are you taking people in a certain order? I'm sorry, this is Jude.
No, go ahead.
Okay, a couple of things. On the last point of transportation, I don't know, and this is I guess a structural question, if county regs can be more liberal with regard to transportation ordinance than state regs. Is it or?
Well, the transportation license was eliminated.
Yeah, it's kind of merged with distribution.
Yeah.
Most of the time, state regs do trump local regulations and things like that. There may be a conversation, and we can look into if we have any jurisdiction for allowing movement of goods within our county borders from our entities. But typically in these situations, the state regs will trump the county.
Okay, this is where I'm coming from. We're entering the California statewide marketplace. We've been able to achieve in the last couple of months a non-brick and mortar license, allowing direct delivery of medicine to patients and patient advocacy groups and clinics, healthcare providers, etc. The question of having to go through is obviously not a distributor question. That's a license that goes from license that transports cannabis products from licensee to licensee. But when the state has now said that you don't have to be a dispensary to make deliveries, but it hasn't allowed for transportation of those goods. And I'm wondering if we have a similar allowable transport of 2 patients, both dispensaries and non-tethered to brick and mortar delivery operations in Mendocino County.
Right now, our draft ordinance reads tied to a brick and mortar. So I thought that's a suggestion you would like to make.
Absolutely.
We could.
Yeah.
Should be brought up in the meeting when we talk about non-cultivation to allow delivery services not tied to brick and mortar.
Jude, what you might want to do on this is put something in writing and make sure it gets to the board the Thursday before our next meeting. So this meeting is October 3rd. That's the meeting that the board will discuss the non-cultivation business license ordinance. And so the Thursday, no, we're doing it on the 3rd. Yes, information. No. Thursday the 28th, the agenda will come out. So we're going to put something in writing and send it to the clerk of the board, and that your email, whatever you send, be shared with all the board members. And then that will be, but they'll have it ahead of time before they start reviewing and approving that ordinance on October 3rd.
Okay, thank you for that. So they should get it to the clerk of the board by the 28th of September?
Yeah, in the morning, no later, because they'll publish in the afternoon. So if you want that to be included in the packet and to go to all board members, it should be here in the morning on the 28th.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. I have some others, but I'll wait until other people have a chance to speak.
Carmel, Hannah, I have a question about that last point. If this is actually what Jude is saying is in line with new state law, such as AB 133, and all indications are it will be promulgated further in the regulations, isn't this issue something that is appropriate for us now to ask the staff to include in its comment to the board so that it's not just an individual working member if we all just kind of take a quick vote or something? Is that appropriate?
Well, here's the issue, Hannah. In order for that draft ordinance for the first reading to occur on October 3rd, the actual draft ordinance had to go out to Ukiah Journal and I don't know who else this morning. So right now, that draft ordinance is already being noticed. It's too late to anything in the notice or to change the draft ordinance. Now, you want as a group, rather than just Jews, but as a group to say from the state license requirements working group and remit something that could then be shared with all the board members for October 3rd, we do that. It would have the same impact because on the 3rd, the board has the ability to change the ordinance during the first reading.
Thank you. I would ask that we run that and see if that's possible because I feel like it would have a greater impact, and it certainly is. I thought one of our goals is to see where the state rules are and where we need to differ or where we should align ourselves.
Great.
That's fine. And we have, I don't know how many people we have on the call, but we can just do it by consensus. Who does not agree with Hannah and Jude? Would one of you like to put something in writing?
Yeah, I can do that.
And they could come from this working group?
Yes. Shall I just bring it to our working group meeting then?
Yeah, good. Bring it next week, and then those that are there that would like to could sign it. That'd be good.
Okay. Before we continue, can I ask that the working group face-to-face meeting will be longer than an hour? If we're going to travel all the way there, we might as well get to it, huh?
Well, I'd really like to have them be longer. The problem is that everybody's time and getting everyone in the room. And, you know, again, I appreciate the stakeholders, all the time and attention you're giving to this. We have that will be attending as well. So that's why these meetings for the 26th, all three of them are only scheduled for an hour. Next week is a very tight week. I assure you that in October, we have the meetings be 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on what we're doing. But right now, we don't have any longer than an hour next week.
The problem with that, Carmel, is aren't we supposed to come up with a list of the top 5 or 6 issues for the board out of that meeting next week?
We're supposed to do it out of all the meetings.
That's
We're
nice.
trying to rush through it, and obviously for good reason, because I know the urgency that you all have. So, you know, basically, we're trying to do a process that, you know, could take 12 to 18 months, and we're really trying to do it in 12 to 18 weeks, if not less. And so it's difficult, but this also speaks to doing work outside of the group. And, you know, if there's 9 of you on the call and 9 of you came in with a proposal as to what you want to send to the board, we're going to work with that and try to get it to the board. So you have to look at the time that we have in the working groups as, yes, that's the goal, but you absolutely are invited to work together outside of these meetings and bring your information in or bring your recommendations in as a group. That's fine.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Julia Carrera. I wanted to make a comment about, I think it was Sarah that was speaking about the state trumping county regs. We asked the state clarification like we did with the setbacks, so that each time there's a question as to whether the county can be more lenient or more restrictive than the state, that we get that clarification from the state instead of assuming that the state trumps county, because in the setback situation, that's not the case. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that, and I would say that setback is probably the only times I've seen the state do that. But we can definitely find out on certain items of concern if we can be more lenient.
Right. Well, we generally can't. We can be more restrictive, but not more lenient.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would be lenient with those setbacks is because of the way the state wrote that. Yes.
I think that there are other ways the state wrote things that we should check to see if we can be more lenient or more restrictive. Thank you.
Let's see. Paul, have you talked? Would you like to speak next?
Sure. With regards to the leniency and what Julia was just talking about, it would be really good if there was a point person that actually knew, had the answers to these questions that we could go to find out. I know this is going to come up again with the Class K, as they're talking about that next Monday, because how lenient can we be and not overstep the state regulations on Class K? That's one of them. Also things like, what are these going to be? What, the things for this micro business. No doubt that it's going to be for medical as well, and that it's going to be tiered, or at least appears to be. But is there a point person at the county? Because I guess the county has more juice than someone just like me trying to as hard as I can, to get meetings with people that we could have as a reference to help to clarify as we move forward, so that we're not, waiting to see what the state does and not overstepping what we're able to do.
Paul, I'm going to jump in. This is Carmel again, and I believe that other people on the call know this, so I'm sorry that we have not communicated this to you, but we have a robust legislative platform, we work not only with the state on a regular basis around cannabis, but also with our statewide association. And I guess my point is that Mendocino County, and I don't know that people on this call know this, but Mendocino County has really been a leader at the state level, not only the stakeholders, and I appreciate every single one of you that's been working with the state over the last couple of years, but also as organizing our Northern California coastal region to develop policy around cannabis in response to the state. And so with that said, we get calls all the time wanting to know what our thoughts are, asking for suggestions, recommendations. And so we have assigned Sarah Duquette, who's on this call. Sarah has been working closely with me for well over a year on cannabis and also water issues, but cannabis right now. And so Sarah is not only our legislative analyst who develops our platform, but she also communicates with the state, gets the information with the state, makes sure that we, myself and the board, know what's happening, and is the person who writes our letters to the state. So that said, Sarah can take this on as far as sharing what she knows about working with the state and what we've heard so far. So Sarah?
I would say it's a little challenging because we're all very busy and they're busy with the regs. We do know that it is their intent to have like liaisons set up so that obviously there's going to be a lot of communication between counties and the state, and a liaison for different counties and different cities for that back and forth communication. Had a pretty good open door policy of providing feedback, hearing our concerns. There was some concerning language in the trailer bill that came out about the proof of license from your local jurisdiction and some of the word about taking, assuming that whatever is provided by the applicant is correct. So there was concerns about that. The California State Association of Counties was present during that conversation and had a lot of concerns, and the bill did move forward with an understanding that our association would be able to see the language and work directly with the state agencies to come to an agreement on proper language for the regs on interaction between the county, cities, and the Bureau and CDFA. So we are definitely going to hear more about that over the next coming weeks and really work closely with CSAC and RCRC to make sure counties are at the table and we get some type of language that can work with us on making sure that this process gets set up smoothly.
And when we develop our legislative platform, that would also be a good time for some of you to be involved as far as cannabis, which, you know, is part of the legislative platform. So there are things, you know, the problem is that when you look at government and you look at private sector, and you are a private sector business industry, when you look at the work you do and the work that we do, you're 5 years ahead of us. That's just how it is. The private sector is always 5 years ahead of government, whether you're talking San Diego County or whether you're talking Mendocino County. You know, we have a lot of bureaucracy that we have to work through just to walk out the door. So, you know, with that said, we'll work with you as quickly as we can, and I want to thank those of you that have sent me emails today outside of this call. I really appreciate what you're saying and the urgency that you're expressing, and we will do everything we can to work quickly with you. But know that, you know, even the development of the ordinance, it took a long time. It's taking a long time for the business license ordinance. There is a process that we have to follow, whether we like it or agree with it or not. And, you know, unfortunately, anybody in the private sector has to deal with those time frames. I think what I'd like to do right now is go over what the key issues are that we've talked about. And so, Kath, I'm hoping that you have written down. So, okay, so Kath is going to list back what we have on this side of the call.
From here we have concerns about state regulations in AB 133, rapid response preparedness for emergency regulations, for state licenses, and prior commercial cannabis. Also, Hannah's comments on the state licenses, also microbusiness, farm distribution, and security requirements. Paul has brought up the issue of canopy. Casey, all echoing canopy issue is the big one, as well as security and distribution, off-farm distribution.
Transportation.
And food also brought up the issues of transportation, brick and mortar, and that's where we are at.
Okay.
So, going over what we see as a list, when we talk about state requirements, does this group want to focus on number 1, canopy, number 2, security regs, number 3, transportation, and then get in? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, but I don't, before we the list down, I don't think the list is complete. A couple other things there are 2 other things that I think are missing from the list. One is make sure that we're very explicit, and this might be already accomplished, explicit about volatile and non-volatile solvents and how we're defining manufacturing in which zones in the county, manufacturing 6 and manufacturing 7. And then the other thing is the local purpose. I want this to be very, very explicitly to protect our coastal businesses. And I've been in communication with some attorneys working with other counties up and down the state. And one attorney wrote and said that Mendocino County has a certified local coastal plan, because if it does, that it allows any local land use permit to be reviewed and approved locally, and only has to go to the Coastal Commission if on appeal. And reiterated that this is according to the state regulations, that the state law be exempt from CEQA with regard to provide regulation to coastal businesses.
So, it is, yes. This is Mary Lynn. I just came into the meeting a few minutes ago. I'll speak real quickly just to the LP. Yes, we have a certified local coastal plan, and I will let you know that we have been discussing internally about proceeding with something for the coastal area, and also looking into the information that you supplied to us regarding what Santa Cruz, I think it's San Luis Obispo, had done. We've not been really good in getting information back from the Coastal Commission. I think that's where we're going to start. Is we have a consultant that we've been using internally for coastal stuff, and we're going to have them look into this. So we are working on it, Jude. We're not putting it on the back burner.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, then.
And I would like to stress that the micro business.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Wait.
Carmel, before anybody else speaks, the issue other than the provisional local permit and dealing with protecting coastal was volatile versus non-volatile. And we have Brian Hoy in the room. Brian, do you want to make a comment?
Looking at the manufacturing regulations that they're developing, there's concern that some of the volatiles might have residues that are detrimental to health, and I think they want to try to eliminate those. So I would imagine they'll look at some alternative methods that will not impart any residues in the product.
No.
That was a yes or a no.
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 The manufacturing of using volatiles there's like a concern that some of the volatile materials might impart detrimental effects to the products that would be detrimental to health. So when they develop the regulations, they'll be looking at chemicals that won't do that, or alternative methods that won't use chemicals in the production.
Well, they're tested for residual solvents.
Right.
Correct, which means some of them will probably be eliminated. They probably not allow some of them because some of to remove.
But if the results come in with too much, but if results come in with it doesn't pass because of the
We can't.
Well, that's what they're looking at, and I think there may be some that they will look at that combined with the product that they have done, that it would be that it's easier just to say use alternatives or use a different a method, or use a different chemical.
This is Jude. A133 specifically does not list ethanol anymore as a volatile. It refers instead, it stripped down the definition of volatile and non-volatile solvents to reflect Health and Safety Code 11362. And when you read that, ethanol specifically is not included in the list of volatile.
Note in our ordinance locally, we do not list any solvent. We took that out from the planning commission because that was the concern that we had listed examples, that ethanol. So we removed that from the ordinance. So when that goes to the board, it's just going to give the definition of what the volatile process is, but not mention any chemical. So that was removed.
Right.
So then, because in microbusiness you're allowed to use manufacturing for non-volatile solvents, does that then include ethanol?
We're not, the county's not addressing that. That'll be addressed by the state.
But yes, Paul, that would include ethanol.
Okay.
The state would, as it is now in AB 133.
I didn't see that.
This is Julia Carrera. I would like to get back to the priority that Carmel was talking about. And Carmel, to me, the one priority is proof of local permit to get a state permit. To me, that's the number one priority. And the rest the group can decide how to prioritize. Thank you.
Julia, thank you for getting back on track. And given that we have just a few more minutes, so when we look at the top, and what we've done this in the other two working groups, we want to take the top issues, and if we want to get in front of the board on these issues, we have to limit it to say the top 3 to 5. So I will ask you again. I think we have all the issues: volatile versus non-volatile, provisional, local versus state, which I appreciate. We talked about that. Also with AB 133, I would say that county security requirements, transportation, and do we want to say state versus local permits? Do we think those might be the top 4 that we want to work on? Or go ahead.
I would add microbusiness. I think it's really important for a number of the small cottage cultures that they be able to produce a value-added product, maintain the relationships with the dispensaries that they've established the relationships with.
Okay, I'm going to throw it out to the group. Okay, I'm going to throw it out to the group. There's a lot of issues. Somebody mute yourself.
Hello?
So this is Cole, and we have about 5 minutes left.
You have a terrible echo.
You have a terrible echo. If somebody needs to use their phone, I would say it might be Paul. Paul, can you use your phone? Did not have an echo before Paul talked. Okay, the other option is that we can use, that we can finalize this call. I think we can do that, but don't make progress. So, So the issues that we have, the requirement, regulations, rather, AB 133, we're all familiar with AB 133. We know about the trailer bill language. We know what our representatives up here, we know how they voted. We were informed that, supported it. He told us ahead of time. We had a lot of time talking with him. Anyway, that was that. Rapid response, Hannah has brought that up. And with for emergency regulations, and we talked about commercial cannabis, we talked about transportation, security regs, canopy, volatile versus non-volatile, provisional local permits, protecting coastal. Marion did say that they are looking at coastal, so it's not on the back burner. We talked about a state permit and a local permit and how they're going to marry up, and then micro business. So I would say for next week, we really have to look at just a few of the issues, because if we try to do all of them, we're not going to get done in time to get anything in front of the board. So I think it might have been Casey that said canopy, security requirements, and transportation, and then local versus state permit and micro business. Those are fine. So what I'd like to do next week, when we talk state regulations, and with the state, if we look at canopy, security, transportation, I should start there. So you're muted, and I know I can't hear you screaming, but you want to mute them and see. We're going to unmute you.
Hi, this is Hannah. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I just want to know what happened to the provisional question.
Yes.
I think that is a time-sensitive issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's there. Provisional is there.
Okay, sorry. All right, I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Can I ask one question regarding to microbusiness?
Microbusiness? What about the microbusiness?
In recent board meetings, they have referred to microbusiness as an industrial use. Have somebody define that and the ramifications of that designation?
Okay, then for next week's call, Penny will look at microbusiness, industrial use. That's what you're asking, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Mary Lynn, is that Cindy or is that Corinne?
That's Corinne.
Okay.
And if I could add on to that, I know how that would dovetail into a cottage cultivation license. It's an industrial use.
Okay.
This is Ellen. I recommend that who are adding things to the agenda, myself included, do all the research that they can between now and the next meeting, so that we are not just asking questions, but we also have some answers to these questions. And I would also like to add my endorsement of Julia's priority, number one, get some kind of permit that will meet the requirements of the state for provisional license. I think that should be right up there. But again, I think we should all come to the next meeting with some suggested answers.
Thank you, Ellen.
I would also second that priority, the provisional license priority. I would second that as well.
So then let me say this. Do you want to move the provisional license issue up and move canopy, security, and transportation down?
Yes.
All right, I'm going to take that as consensus. All right, number one, local permit, meeting state requirements for provisional licenses, and then go from there. Okay, everyone, thank you very much, and I really appreciate everybody's work. I appreciate your work outside of this meeting even more. The more you do, the more we can hit this to the finish line. That would be good. Again, we're very open to your suggestions. Work together, staff and the stakeholders, to come up with reasonable solutions that we could bring to the board. that said, everyone have a good day, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
So, I was kidding, it was at 1.